IVM.
All right, welcome to episode 94 of Shunya 1. We are counting down to that 100
It's
very
coming
nicely.
soon.
Exactly, man.
We will have an announcement related to that fairly soon as well for people.
Exactly. Yes, that should be a fun milestone to look forward
Yes,
to.
it is.
But while we count down, we've had some great episodes of late, and I think, I'm really thankful for all the folks who have actually shown up to the show and been able to make this happen. Last week's episode with Hitesh was also a lot of fun.
Really interesting. I thought there was some depth about marketing, which we generally don't get. We haven't had that many marketing people. I think Mona was on very early on.
Yeah.
But besides that, most of the people we get are more product and that kind of thing. So we don't really talk about the marketing side of things too much.
Exactly. And it's one of the things which tech entrepreneurs and engineers and everyone else in the tech community usually doesn't know much about.
No, they don't.
And it was good to have that perspective of someone who's traditional marketing but is now using their insights in tech and how they're using, of course, all the data available to them. Today's episode is actually somewhat of an extension of that. It'll be interesting to...
Well, I mean, we're in the same milieu of businesses, I guess you would say.
Exactly.
Fashion, lifestyle, I guess, but a different kind of fashion lifestyle.
Exactly. But let me introduce our guest for the evening. We're talking to Akshay Narvekar, who is the founder of the Bombay Shirt Company, and we have a very interesting conversation coming up with him just after this quick break. Hey guys, this episode is sponsored by Savari Cabs, and that's SAVAARI.com. I've been using the service. I think it was Amit who told me about it, and I really loved the fact that it delivered on what exactly it promised. I make a booking, I travel a lot, I especially do all-day cabs. I haven't tried the outstation yet. I've had some great experiences with some really good, courteous and experienced chauffeurs who know the place, and they also have a lot of flexibility because I was a group of 4, I got a bigger car, and I think the whole thing just works. They have a great website, it's easy to book. I even got a message on WhatsApp with all the details I needed. So it was super convenient, super reliable, and I think everyone should try it out. So you should use the code we have specially for you. That's IVM Travel, the discount code for your cab. You can get $250 off on this, and you get an additional $300 cash back from Amazon Pay as well. So check it out and try out Savari.com. Hey Akshay, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for making it. Glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and of course you're wearing a Bombay Shirt Company shirt is what I presume.
Don't have a choice, do I?
So, funnily enough, you were telling me a story about how and why you chose to start this venture of yours way back in 2012. Why don't you give us a little introduction on that, and of course yourself, of what you've been doing before this?
Sure. So, the business was started out of a personal need, to be honest. I spent some time in the US working for a fashion brand, moved back to India, did my MBA, worked for a private equity fund, and then throughout my time there, thinking of ideas to start my own business. I knew that I wanted to do something where I had some experience, apparel and fashion being one of them. So it's always on my mind. I have extraordinarily long arms, so I couldn't buy shirts off the rack. I'd go to the tailor, buy fabric, get it stitched, go down to the details of getting the buttons, and it was a very cumbersome process. I did it for a while, and I said, look, there has to be a better way of doing this, right? So I go online.
And did you actually think that this was a country problem or something like that? Like people just don't make shirts of a specific kind, or what was your otherwise insight on the market which told you that you had to go custom?
Look, I think, so design is quite cookie cutter, right? So it doesn't appeal to everybody. And I found myself, wanting quirks that weren't available with the ready-made brands, right? So that's part of the reason why I went custom, not just for the fit itself. And I realized there was other people like me, right? So when I did these designs, people would ask me about where I got it from. And I, was quite proud to tell them that I designed it myself. So went online, said, look, somebody has to be doing this online. It has to be an easier way, right? But there wasn't, right? So then that's when I started thinking about this seriously. I said, look, the barriers to entry are very low. I don't need very much money to set up a website and get started. So, let's just do this, right? Had some savings, started a website, bought a couple of machines, and started from there.
You actually started making these shirts.
I started making the shirts. We started off in a 1,000 square foot office with 4 tailors, and some fabric. Put up the website in 3 months, and just got started.
Wow, and this is the Indian version of a garage startup in every sense.
Something like that, yeah.
Right, and you told me that you had a little bit of background obviously in fashion and apparel. What made you but you were also a private equity guy, which means you were also very used to doing the numbers behind everything that you did. So what at this point in, let's say, in 2012, I mean, this is when websites were a thing, of course, but the sort of internet explosion had just started to happen in India. What made you choose, let's say, an online business, to do an online business in such a otherwise traditional offline industry?
Yeah, I think it's ignorance, right? I thought it's the cheaper way to go, starting an online business. Little did I know, right? So I thought, what is it going to take? It's going to cost me a few lakhs to put up this website, buy some fabric, get a few machines, get started. How difficult can it be? Later on,
how difficult was it?
Fairly difficult, yeah. So very quickly, 6 months into it, we realized there's some structural challenges with trying to do this purely online. There's obviously the measurements part of it. There's the fabric touch and feel, and so then quickly started to explore models that were more offline. So we started with sending stylists home to your house, and then a couple of years into it, when we finally raised a substantial amount of money, we opened our first store, and that's become a much bigger part of our business as we've grown.
Okay, so tell us the journey a little bit from online. So I mean, recall seeing your first ever online portal with, obviously you were going for the neat, clean, crisp look, which I think slowly the Indian market or the Indian customer was waking up to, right? From otherwise available brands, let's say, or like you said, the cookie cutter off-the-shelf brands. What was your unique go-to-market? And tell us a little bit about how that evolved.
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, I think that's what we're going for in terms of the aesthetic, right? If you look even at the name, we wanted something that was just classic, timeless, that would, stand the test of time. And down to the aesthetic of the website and the product itself, at least what we try to do is keep this neat and very minimal style. Mm-hmm. So that's, and that reflects across all touch points, whether it's our stores today, so that's just sort of the ethos of the brand.
And why did you think that appeals with the today's crowd? Like, what's your thesis on why this product?
I think it's more just an extension of who I am, right? I don't think I was necessarily looking at the customer or whether the market had evolved to be receptive to that. It's just the kind of person I am. I know what appeals to me, and I just put that out there, right? And ever since, it's just, like I said, just been an extension of me.
And what's the customer feedback been as to why do they like your brand?
I think the fact that it's consistent, right? Because it's who I am. We've tried, that's how we've done things over the years, and that consistency over the last 7 years hopefully has remained, like I said, across touch points. So I think that to me is how you go about creating a brand, is you do things consistently.
So when you went offline, again, like you said, it involves a whole different thought process behind business, running an offline store versus an online one. What do you think made your, like you said, make you have more success once you went offline? Like, what was that change in people's minds which occurred?
Again, so ironically, one of the things that worked is our ignorance, right? So I'd never worked in a retail setup before. So when we put together the processes for our first store, it just, whatever came into it, intuitively to us or logically to us is what we did. It's not necessarily what has typically worked in the retail space. Mm-hmm. So the stores were more experiential, right? Because you can't buy something and take it home with you. Mm-hmm. It's about, the experience of designing something and going through the process of getting fitted, etc., and doing that with a friend or with your dad or your wife. And, it was more an experiential center than being more a transactional, store. So I think that was something different. I think hadn't been really done before. So that's sort of the initial play.
So does the store basically, is the store in service to the online system or the online service? If that will, is the store a way to extend the online service, or is the store an independent thing of its own?
I think they both play off of each other, right? So obviously digital marketing and the online lets people know that the brand exists, that a store exists. But at the same time, you may drive by a store and say, hey, I had never heard of this before, and then go on the website and shop there. So I think they kind of feed off of each other. There's, one wouldn't exist without the other. And that's why the strategy has and will be to be omnichannel.
Okay. And going down, actually growing at scale with this, right? You said you started with obviously a 1,000 square foot apartment and a few machines, but to do this at scale, you have to go to like becoming a small mini factory
Absolutely.
of sorts. When did you decide to take that leap, and what have you, again, purely from a business standpoint, over these 7 years, what has been that inflection point for you, which made you double down on doing this?
So again, coming back to what we talked about, the back end, right? That's been the most sort of ever evolving part of our business. I think the demand's always been there. Keeping up the supply has been the challenge, right? And we've had to kind of iterate and just be creative as the years have gone by. And different models have worked at different times, right? So at the moment, we've got multiple micro workshops rather than having one massive workshop. And there's multiple reasons for why we would do that. But I think now in terms of the next phase of our growth, that may not be the answer, right? So I'm actually off to Italy next week because now we're looking at complete automation. With automation, lead times are reduced. The consistency is a lot higher. So again, as you scale, you figure out what the solutions are that work for you at that particular moment.
What is the benefit of having a number of micro facilities rather than one large facility?
Obviously, the most obvious is you're not reliant on one factory or anything going wrong in that one factory, right? Because you have multiple factories, we demand a certain level of quality, and you're almost in competition with the other workshops too. Basis that is how the more pieces you get the next month, and so on and so forth. And so, it keeps that sort of healthy level of internal competition going on, and the customer benefits because he gets the best quality at the end of the day.
But it also introduces maybe things like inconsistency, right? In terms of not being able to control across the board, or...
So the supply chain is broken down into numerous automated and more commoditized processes, right? So the automated processes are the value-added ones, and those are processes we retain in-house. So the commoditized part of the process, which is what goes out to the micro factories.
Right.
So, and every piece is quality controlled by people on our roles. So we, again, like I said, we spend a lot of time on this process and understanding what works and what doesn't work. And we think we've got a model that works well at the moment.
Right. How do you look at the market of what you got into, right? When you said when you started, it was like you could create a unique brand. There was none, or there were very few, maybe, if at all any. How do you think that has evolved over time? I mean, I'm sure there is some healthy competition. There are other direct-to-market brands, as we call them, or which avoid the typical supply chain.
Sure.
How do you see that overall landscape, and how do you position yourself there?
So I think the idea has always been to be a democratic brand. So we're trying to say that bespoke doesn't necessarily need to be this snooty, nose up in the air type of thing. We're pricing it at what you'd pay for a ready-made shirt of a comparable quality, and saying, why would you buy a ready-made shirt when you can get a custom-made shirt designed to you, fit to you at the same price? Yes, today the knock is that you have to wait 14 days for the shirt to come. And, that's why we're spending, like I said, so much time on the back end and trying to figure out how to reduce that. But once that's done, there really shouldn't be a reason for you to go and buy ready-made anymore. So I look at the market as being the market for shirts in general, not just the custom-made market or the tailor-made market. So if anyone's wearing a shirt, we feel like they should be wearing a custom-made shirt, and hopefully ours.
Wow. And that's actually very clear-cut focused positioning, right? I mean, literally, I would have asked you what about pants, but I'm not going to.
Oh, we started pants. We just started pants 3 months ago.
See, okay, so there you go. So once you've established what your focus area is, obviously you can then scale horizontally on your product line. But I think I've actually trying to compare with the fact that while I had heard about you guys when you launched, over the years, I think there's a lot more focus on multiple such similar brands, not necessarily shirts only. It could be, like I said, there's brands around athletic wear. Yeah. There's custom brands for now shoes. Everyone's sort of doing this whole custom brand or homegrown brands, direct to consumer sort of play, right? And now it seems there's a standard playbook for it, where make a brand online, Instagram, everything, and then eventually figure out there's a market. And I'm sure there is a lot of insight on that. So what is your 7 years worth of insight actually tell you, for how easy or hard is it today to just come up with something and make a cool Instagram page and get started selling?
I think customers are getting more and more, wiser to the provenance of a brand, what it stands for, how stuff is made, why is it being sold at a certain price point. All of that plays a big role into why customers either buy into a brand or not. I would assume that since a lot more people are doing it now, it's getting increasingly harder to stand out as a direct-to-customer brand. But I think if you're doing the right things, if you're solving a problem, it sounds very cliched, but if you're really solving a problem, like some of these athleisure brands are, then people will naturally gravitate to you. And like I said earlier, I think if you do things consistently, which to me is the hallmark of a brand, or when you're building a brand, you'll stand the test of time.
Can you go deeper on a little bit, since obviously we have a lot of folks talking about tech here. How has your online platform sort of helped or augmented this whole expansion of your?
So if I had to talk about tech, I think tech has really revolutionized how our back end works. More than our front end. Now you have to remember, we have a supply chain that's extremely complex, right? We've got fabrics coming in from mills all across the world. We've got multiple these micro factories that are dotted all over the city. We've got stores all over the country, internationally as well. And we've had to build a system that kind of connects all of that real time while matching supply and demand, very closely, right? So the last sort of 4 or 5 years has, exclusively been spent on trying to build the system. So we can do all of this with a relatively small team. So there's 20, 25 of us in the corporate office, but a lot of this is possible because of the tech that we've built. Unfortunately, because we're not that big a company in terms of our resources, we can only focus on so many things at a time, right? I think if I have to be very honest, one of the things where we could do a lot more work, and we will be doing a lot more work going forward, is the website and the web experience itself, right? I think over the next year, that's going to be the focus, and a lot of our resources are going to be diverted towards that.
So even on the back end, right? What kind of platform why did you choose to sort of build this in-house? Wouldn't you think, like, in a very organized industry like apparel, there would be so many platforms or tools or standard products out there which you could just pick and use to run your supply chain? So
not for custom made. For ready-made, yes. For custom-made, there's so many wrinkles, right? I mean, everything from measurements to the styling that goes into a shirt. There was no product out of the box that worked for us.
Right.
And we knew, again, I think for us, that's one of the sort of defensible features of our business. The fact that we've built this ERP system over the last 4 or 5 years. At one point, we want to just package this and license this out to anyone doing anything custom-made, to be honest.
Yeah.
But we do get requests, honestly, for that. So,
what kind of industries?
Everyone's going bespoke, right? I mean, if you look at what Tesla's doing with cars, or whether the travel industry, people are getting their own bespoke holidays. I mean, you look across the board, and everything is moving towards personalization, and that really kind of is the fundamental thesis of what we believe the future is going to be.
So it's literally personalized all the way down to the shirt on your back.
Yeah.
So coming to the ERP, right? Again, talking about this tech, how have you seen the adoption of ERP of the platform you've built for your industry, especially given that you're in India, right? You're trying to organize and automate and make tech savvy a group of artisans or skilled workers and so on, who are typically not used to that tech. How did you actually manage that?
Look, it's not been easy, right? I mean, the interfaces have to be thought out very clearly for it to be able to be used by someone who's typically not done it before.
Right.
So again, that's why it's taken as long as it has. If you break down the business, it's not as complex as one might make it out to be. But these small things, play a big role in the usability of it. I still think we're 60% there, 70% there. There's a lot of work still to be done to make it usable down to the lowest level, but we're working on it.
Right.
On that note, I think we're going to take a quick break, come back and talk some more.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another incredible week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you are not following us on social media, please make sure you do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. A couple of messages up top. First, we're hiring right now. We're looking to hire a producer. We're looking to hire copywriters. We're looking to hire an audio engineer. We're looking for web developers. We're looking for business people. If you're looking to work at IBM, which in my opinion is probably one of the best places to work at, then please do send us an application. Also, please do download our app if you're not listening to it on our app. Our app is available on the Play Store. And I also want to thank our sponsors this month, Savari, Storytel, and Paytm Money. Thank you very much for supporting us. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus is joined by Mayank Shekhar, film critic and editorial head of Midday Entertainment. They talk about their memories from St. Xavier's prom nights, Mayank's very first encounter with Cyrus, the recently concluded elections, and Mayank's process of writing. On the Filter Coffee podcast, Ronnie Screwwala joins Karthik Nagarajan to talk about his early days as an entrepreneur and what has kept him going during adversities. And if that's not enough Ronnie Screwwala for you, listen to his podcast, the Ronnie Screwwala podcast, where Ronnie talks to me about the benefits and disadvantages of being an outsider, building a brand identity, and the learnings from collaborating with business giants across the world. On Business.next, Govindraj Athiraj is joined by author Jason Jennings. They talk about the key ingredients that are crucial in building a high-speed economy. On Geek Fruit, Tejas, Alika, and special guest Ishan Krishna of Bhayanak Moth go down nostalgia lane and discuss the world of Pokemon, including the newly released Pokemon Detective Pikachu. On Simplified, Chuck, Naren, and Shriketh discuss the origins of the Yeti, Loch Ness Monsters, Bigfoot, and other cryptic creatures. On States of Anarchy, Hansani's guest is Benjamin Katzer-Silverstein. He's from the Foreign Policy Research Institute, and he busts myths about the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. And with that, let's get you on with your show.
All right, welcome back. Going forward, like you said, you're obviously investing in more automation on the hardware, like the machine level. Yeah. What can you tell us, again, from your, going offline or going online? You're one of those brands which has sort of done both in equal measure or in varying different times in your life cycle. So what is the crux of like where you want to be going forward?
We believe that the apparel industry has a lot of structural issues at the moment. Firstly is the wastage caused by all the excess inventory. Right? Millions of tons of clothes get buried in landfills every year. And that causes obviously a lot of environmental damage. I mean, even the amount of water and synthetics that are used in fabrics and things like that is just not great for the environment. That's one big issue here. I think, generally in the apparel industry, I don't think it's going to be okay for a big brand to say, here are 50 SKUs for the season and it's going to fit everybody. These 5 sizes are going to fit everybody. That's not going to work anymore. I think a lot of brands are saddled with high acquisition costs, trying to get more and more customers. Other brands are failing because of the real estate and, the costs of running big stores. So I think our model is in some way or form trying to solve for all these issues, right? We are a no inventory model because it's all made to measure.
Right.
We run small stores because we're not selling through the stores. It's more sort of an experience center. And our focus really is on retaining customers and building long-term customers. So I think we're kind of the antithesis of how apparel works today. So, keeping all that in mind, that's sort of the focus of saying, look, we have an opportunity here now to build a brand that can change the way that apparel is consumed. And this is not just a local problem. This is a problem worldwide. So we do firmly have global ambitions as well. And, we'll see how it goes.
Wow. Okay. Talk a little more about this. So you're obviously disrupting an industry here. At the same time, do you also see, I know it may not be enough number of years there or enough number of players like this, like yourselves in this space, but do you see the mainstream, the brands which exist, the mass market ones, do you see them being phased by this at all? Or do you see them, in fact, trying to also compete with you? How do they look at this as competition? Look,
I think everyone's realizing, all the big brands are realizing that, there is a move towards personalization, right? Now, personalization can come in many levels. For a huge incumbent, in ready-to-wear to suddenly change their DNA and start going made to measure, it's not going to happen. It just takes a different kind of company. But you can start doing the small things, right? So I was traveling to New York a few months ago, and I noticed that almost every store offers a monogram or your initials on your clothing in store. That's just a small step that these guys are taking towards getting there. So, over the course of time, everyone's going to have to rejig their processes and their offerings, because this is what, people are going to want.
Yeah, identity and that's one step. I mean, that's happening for everything.
Yeah, individualism, right? Yeah. I mean, you want it to be your own thing.
Right.
No matter what it is, right? Even a pair of shoes, you want it to have something which is different than everybody else has.
I think it's also social media, right? So everyone's building their own personal brands on social media. They want to they want to portray their best selves, and especially in clothing, right? And that's how you portray your sense of style and all of that. So, we genuinely believe this is the way of the future, and
you're between this huge space of, like, obviously there's the designers and people who only wear designer things and always put photos of designer like clothes. I don't wear any design. I have no idea what shirt I'm wearing. So the whole point is that there's that segment of customers, and then there is the entire market after that of people wearing just clothes for clothes' sake.
Yeah.
I'm actually one of the opposite folks. Yeah? I'm trying to make sure that I don't have to decide what clothes I want to wear. Like, I'm going the other route slowly of buying more of the same. So that,
No, but on that point, actually, I think so. One of the big things we're going to do going forward is use all the data that we have to better curate for people what they should wear, what would look good on them, etc. Just take that confusion out of the whole process. Right?
Exactly.
Today, because we have no inventory, we have thousands of fabrics you can choose from, but that can be intimidating for a lot of people.
Exactly.
Right?
Decision anxiety.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So we're looking to now get data scientists on board who say, hey, look, let's answer 10 questions, get to know you a little bit, and then let's curate this down to what was going to work for you.
Wow.
Right? And then we'll iterate over the course of time as we get more and more data. Iterate and really sort of help you look your best.
Awesome. No, that's exactly right. That's where, again, the tech will play a large part, I'm sure, of looking at all this data and trying to mine it for the right insights. Yep. But this gap I was talking about, or rather this large addressable market, as most VCs would say, right? It's a huge market. You're going after a massive market of, like, people who are just buying clothes every single day from every large known manufacturer of apparel. How do you make them change their mind or choose something like this, right? How do you make them make that first step of deciding that, you know what, I don't care about this mass market brand anymore. I rather have the personalization.
So I mean, like we spoke about what I did this morning, right? I mean, you were coming on the show. I thought, let me get a shirt. I went through the whole process, right? I selected the fabric, I selected the measurement, I did all the customization. At the end of it,
you were waiting for the promo code, yeah.
No, I wasn't waiting for the promo code. I wasn't, but hey, if you want to give me one, that'd be good. But I kind of got that in my head, right? That you know what, the store is close to my house. Let me go to the store first, right? How do you make people overcome that?
I think when you create an experience that's seamless across channels, people won't have to choose. I said earlier that I'm not sure that our online experience is everything that it should be and could be, and hopefully will be. That doubt creeps into your mind, right? You're worried about your fit, you're worried about the touch and feel aspect of it. But if we can take that hesitation out by just building a better online experience, that would solve for it.
Right. I mean, that's for you, that's the same case with you buying anything else online.
That's
also.
True, yeah.
Right? If you wanted a shirt, you would.
I feel like shirts are a little different than things like shoes and socks.
No, exactly my point. Yeah. So that means it doesn't matter that you went to the Bombay Shirt Company. It could have been any other shirt.
It would have been any shirt. But again, I'm talking about it from a pure, from the perspective of this particular category in things.
Exactly. Right? But at a more general level also, like, how do you get people to choose a bespoke versus mass market? I mean, because again, what does the mass market do today? They also hire designers and they look at trends and they come up with styles and whatnot, right? They're also doing all of those things as trying to be as diverse as possible. Hence, it's a lot of times just looking at, hey, this looks interesting, let me buy it. Versus you, which are actively asking someone to choose and be very forthcoming with their personality or their choice, right? So do you think that's something which the Indian customer or the global customer is?
So there's two parts to it, right? I think one is the functional aspect of it. I don't think, especially for the Indian male, that most ready-to-wear brands fit you well. If you have a brand that fits you well and you're happy, great. I mean, the switching costs are very high. I can't convince you. So that's one side of it, right? Obviously, there's the design side of it too, where we talked about wanting to express your individuality and all of that. But I think also on a more emotional level, I think, all of the negative externalities from buying ready to wear, whether it's all the inventory issues and the waste that causes, about the working conditions that some of those brands work under, that's not great either. So if you're conscious about some of that and you're conscious about the provenance of your product, then you would pay attention to a brand like ours.
That's true.
Right? So you may be paying a slight premium on what you'd be paying for on a ready-to-wear shirt, but hopefully you see value in terms of the quality and everything that goes behind making that shirt.
All right. That's actually something interesting, because I may be ignorant of the backgrounds, but I didn't actually know about most of the things which go into the mass market industry today, like the wastage.
The waste, that's an eye-opener.
Yeah. Did you know that there was so much wastage
I
about
had no idea.
shirts which are unworn go into landfills?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the big brands, right? Let's take, I'm not going to name any, but let's talk about some of the big designer brands. Now, if they don't sell off their inventory, they don't want to go off price because that just hurts their brand image.
Right.
So what do? They dump it in landfills, or they burn it, or they throw it into the sea. Yeah, that's what happens.
So they rather not make any money.
So the apparel industry is one of the most harmful industries for the environment.
Interesting.
That's
You don't expect that, right?
Yeah, I don't
intuitively,
that,
but that is the truth.
So that means they rather just waste products than deteriorate the price.
Yeah,
because it's wow.
Kind of sucks.
Yeah, that's kind of sad, actually. But I mean, imagine that this is in a world where you have people who are homeless, you have people who actually have nothing to wear, and this could serve them, but they don't choose to do that as well.
No. So it's the direct to customer brands who are now picking up on all these things, right? Look at Tom's and what they're doing with shoes, or look at Warby Parker and what they're doing with glasses.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why a lot of people are buying into this, and they want to do their bit to help.
So speaking of Warby Parker, right, one of the things that they do, which is kind of interesting, is they broke the pricing, right? I mean, like that was there.
Yep.
Is there potential for something like that in the apparel space, or is it already efficient enough on the mass manufacturing side that you're not going to really be able to change pricing in significant ways?
I mean, the only way on the mass manufacturing side to change prices is to exploit workers even further, right?
Right.
And with rising wages across the world now, it's becoming harder and harder to do that, right? So again, this is part of the reason why I say the apparel industry is broken. For us, that's not how we want to do it. I think automation is the way of the future. Unfortunately, that may result in a loss of jobs, but then hopefully people upskill. And even as we automate, we'll make sure that everyone who currently works with us upskills in some way or form, and sort of remains in the ecosystem.
Cool.
Interesting. Well, I know you have big plans on, like you shared with us, of obviously going worldwide, and you have started pants. But anything else in, like, how big do you see this, the Bombay Shirt Company becoming? Or like, what's your outlook on how diverse in your range and expansion that you might go into?
Yeah, I think, look, we've scratched the surface when it comes to what we're doing. Shirts, we've been doing it for 7 years now, and consciously try to do one product and try to do it as well as we can. We've started experimenting with pants, so we have them in 3 of our stores in Bombay as a pilot project, and once we're comfortable with how the operations work, we'll roll it out all over the place. In terms of geographies, we currently have 2 stores internationally. We have a store in New York and we have a store in Dubai. And it's been a year and a half that they've both been operational, and the signs are very positive. So again, coming back to the industry, I think it's a problem that we're solving not just locally, but a problem that we're solving globally. So we'll do it one step at a time. We're in no hurry to grow fast, but eventually, in terms of what we want to do, we want to be a global brand, and not very many Indian brands, especially in the apparel space and the Western apparel space, have made it internationally. So we want to give ourselves every chance to be the first.
Awesome. Do you want to do a shout out to folks who are listening about what kind of talent you're looking for, what kind of things they should try out, where should they go and obviously find your products apart from obviously the website?
So in terms of talent, we're in the process of actually raising a round of funding. Should hopefully be through in the next couple of months. So we're looking for a lot of people to come in senior roles and help us grow this thing. So if you're passionate about the apparel space, or you're passionate about tech products, shout out to us at careers@bombayshirts.com, and we'd love to chat with you. And yeah.
And how does someone reach you? What about your own? Do you have a Twitter handle or something like that you could shout out?
I'm not very active on Twitter, but you could just email me at akshay@bombayshirts.com, and yeah, we can start a conversation there.
Boom.
All right.
Awesome. And as always, people, please do remember you can join our Slack channel by going to ivmpodcast.com/Shunya1. There's a button over there saying join the Slack channel, and Abhineet will send you an email asking you to join. Also, please do a rating or review. That is really helpful. You can do it on Apple Podcast. You can do it on, pretty much anywhere. Even on Google. You can just do like a Google rating too. There are all kinds of places to do a rating. Just do a rating. That helps us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for listening, guys, and we'll be back with another episode next week.
Hi, I'm Ronnie Screwella, first-generation entrepreneur and co-founder at Upgrad. My podcast, Dreaming with Your Eyes Open, is a companion podcast to my best-selling book, Dream with Your Eyes Open. On this podcast, I talk to Amit Doshi, founder of IVM Podcast, about my entrepreneurial journey. I walk you through my successes and failures, mostly my failures, and the lessons that I learned from my experiences, family, and colleagues. What was my first entrepreneurial venture? Why I chose Japanese cartoons over animation cartoons on Hangama? Why did I sell my stake at UTV to Disney? Find out all this and more on the Ronnie Screwella podcast, Dreaming with Your Eyes Open. New episodes out every Tuesday on the IVM Podcasts app, website, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
The most engaging and the most useful conversations you may have in your life are likely to be with your most challenging customers. Hi, I'm Ambi Parmeshwaran, and on this podcast, I will take you through my book, Sponge, Leadership Lessons I Learned from My Clients. Packed with real stories about real people, but most of all, packed with the innumerable lessons I soaked up from some of the most iconic business leaders like Ratan Tata, Azim Premji, S. Ramadorai, Karsanbhai Patel, M. Damodaran, Dr. Kurian, and many more. Don't forget to tune into the Sponge podcast. Keep sponging to keep learning.